Welcome to Belmont Journal. I'm your host, Anne Marie Mahoney, and I am very excited today to be talking about the Belmont Savings Bank Foundation. I have two guests with me, Pat Brusch, who is the Vice President and Treasurer of the Board of Directors of the Belmont Savings Bank Foundation, and Ellen Schreiber, who is the Program Director. So we're going to talk a little bit about the foundation and all of the wonderful things that they have done in the last few years, and maybe highlight some of the more recent things that you might have seen at the Select Board or you might be seeing at town meeting in the next couple of days. Welcome, ladies. This is great, and it's nice to give you guys a little bit of publicity. Let's start with something really basic. Some people at home even now are saying, wait a minute, there is no more Belmont Savings Bank. Moment of silence. However, you're the Belmont Savings Bank Foundation. So tell us a little bit about the founding of the foundation, what it is, how you got to be where you are today.
You want to start?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. The Belmont Savings Bank Foundation came out of the bank. So Belmont Savings Bank was founded in 1885 as a community bank. And in 2011, it went public. And when it went public, the funding from going public, $2 million of it, was used to seed the foundation.
Okay.
So the foundation was created in order to give grants for things that happened in Belmont that were, had an impact on the community. So that's where we came from.
Okay, so 2011. So in the grand scheme of things, that's not a long time, and yet I have a list here of a lot of things that you have done. So that's actually even more exciting. Before we get into the list, however, tell us, Pat, tell us a little bit about the board, who's on it, and what's their jobs.
So the Belmont Savings Bank decided that the board of directors of the foundation would consist of a member from the board of directors, a operating officer, chief operating officer in this case, of the bank itself, and a citizen of either Belmont, Watertown, Waltham, Cambridge, or Newton. Those are all the communities that the Belmont Savings Bank had branches in.
Okay.
And so Bob Morrissey was the president of the board of directors of the Belmont Savings Bank, and so he was the one chosen to be on the foundation. Hal Toven was the chief operating officer of the bank, and so he was chosen to be there. And then the board of directors and Bob Mahoney were looking for a citizen, and they asked me if I would do it.
Okay.
So I did it as the person who maybe had the ears in the community. And the goal was to provide grants, not to be just another cog in the wheel or to give a little bit of money to another charitable foundation, but to in fact try to make a difference.
All right, which I think you did when we get to the list. You've got some very specific things, and you're right. They're just not another donation to an existing entity. So I guess that's what makes you different and special, which is really great. Ellen, tell us what you do.
I'm the program director. So I am here to make the foundation work, to serve the board and provide them with the information they need to make decisions. I work with the people who apply to us for grants and help make sure we have all of the information the board needs and, do the business of the foundation.
All right, very good. Now, going back to those original people on the board, now not all of them are still there, correct?
The board of the Belmont Savings Bank Foundation.
Yes.
The three of us are still there.
Oh, okay, good.
And around 2018-19, we added Warren Farrell, who was another longtime director of the bank and had been particularly interested in the foundation all along and was constantly bringing us requests and ideas.
Okay.
And so we finally looked at each other and said, Warren, why don't you join us? So he did. So there's now 4 directors.
Okay.
And so that's how Warren got started. And Ellen you've been with us, about 3 years now?
Yeah, this is my 3rd year.
And Ellen actually replaced the Belmont Savings Bank employees who did. There were several of them who did what Ellen now does, all as one person. Okay. So that's pretty much how we are. So we meet 4 times a year. We've been meeting 4 times a year since 2011. Every once in a while, we will meet an extra time if there's a special reason for it. But for the most part, we meet 4 times a year.
So you continue to exist as a separate entity because Belmont Savings Bank is no more.
Yes.
But you are a separate independent entity retaining the Belmont Savings Bank name, but you are the foundation.
This is very important, actually. When the bank was acquired by People's United in 2019, the normal thing to have happened would have been the People's United Foundation, which is independent from the bank, would have absorbed the Belmont Savings Bank Foundation, which was independent from that bank. That didn't happen. There was an incredible amount of foresight by the management and the board of directors of Belmont Savings Bank. And what they did is they kept Belmont Savings Bank Foundation independent. Okay. And that allowed the decision makers, the board of directors, to continue to be Belmont people making decisions for the Belmont community and for local interest, and to set their priorities on doing, and they did, Pat can speak to the fact that they did change their focus somewhat, but it is community driven, and that's made a huge difference for this community.
So you meet 4 times a year. So how many grant rounds do you have? Do you have a set schedule?
That's the grant round.
All right,
4
so
times.
it's 4 times.
The grant round ends about a month before our meeting.
Okay.
And there's a website, and people can go on the website and apply for grants. And then, and there's a list of criteria as to what they have to, what they have to do or be.
Right.
And then Ellen puts the whole package together.
Okay.
Of what the grant is. She kind of vets it a little. She talks to the people because she knows what we're going to ask.
Right, by now, right. You must have heard it multiple times.
It took a little while to figure that out.
No, now you get it.
It's very good. She knows all of us, and so we all have come from a different place, and so she has usually all the answers. And if the request is not ready, then all she does is inform us that it's there on the table, but she's not bringing it to us until the next grant round because it's not complete. So we really don't get a grant until it's complete, which actually you probably remember because
I do, because I was one of those persons requesting, absolutely. Yes. And we'll get to that in a second. In general, what are your criteria for grants? You suggested that it changed a little bit, your focus changed a little bit, but in general, what's your criteria? Dollar amount, type of project?
Are we really specific? I mean...
Well, the dollar amounts are variable. It depends on the project.
Okay.
So, we have shifted after the after the acquisition. We shifted from doing a lot of smaller grants to doing a fewer number of larger grants.
Bigger.
Yes.
And I'm sure you'll get to this, but very recently we've done a couple of very
huge,
large
and we are going to
grants.
talk about that. And when the viewers at home see this, they're also going to be able to see some photographs of some of those activities.
Now, the larger ones, there are additional criteria, which is a project that has an impact on a large swath of people in Belmont. So large community, not just a few people. Projects that they're somewhat concrete. You can wrap your arms around them. You know the impact they're having. So that is also one of the criteria. Another criteria is that it be in Belmont. So did I miss anything? Or?
No, that was the major difference.
Okay.
Was once the bank was acquired and it was no longer a Belmont Savings Bank, 3 of the 4 directors were very Belmont oriented.
Right.
And we made the decision that we would be basically a Belmont-based group.
Right.
So we did, for the first year, try to honor. There were several groups that we had given to, similar to the Belmont Ed Foundation. The other towns had something. We didn't want to pull the rug out from under them. They had a right to expect that maybe they were going to get the grant again this year. So everyone got about the usual groups got about a year's notice that we would be changing the focus, and that only Belmont-based projects. And a Belmont-based project is a project that either affects a large number of Belmont residents and is within Belmont.
The town. Okay.
Yeah, so there were many at the beginning proposals that people would say, well, Belmont people use this. That wasn't what we were looking for. We were looking to be within the town.
Within the town. All right, then, do you want to
I was
add
just
something?
going to
Go
add
ahead.
one thing is that the projects that the board has chosen, they leave a mark on
Yes,
Belmont.
yes.
So they're not, they're significant in some way. And I think that really makes a difference. They're not buying, a table at a fundraiser.
Right.
They're
right.
not, just, yeah.
No, they're definitely
really,
significant. So let's start then with the most recent, the really, really big, talk about significant donations. And you had a little ceremony at the select board recently where you presented, the big checks like you see for the lottery.
They're fun.
And yes. And you mentioned to me earlier that special town meeting in November, we're also going to hear a proclamation from the select board in recognition of those two massive donations. So which one of you would like to tell us about those two?
do you want to start and I'll pick it up?
Well, obviously, among our requestors were some building projects.
Yes.
And we were approached by the Library Board of Trustees, and we were approached by the people on the rink fundraising committee, among others. And eventually, after a lot of back and forth,
A real lot. Since I am on the rink building committee, there was a lot.
there was a lot, we made provisional grants, which we had never done before, but we did.
You're right, and that was different, and that was a little difficult for some people, particularly on these building committees, to understand. This is not just a check, here, go build your building. Talk about the provisional
I think
nature.
that was very nerve-wracking for the town of Belmont, because what we did was we said we will give $3 million, $2 million to the library project and $1 million to the rink project, but only after the construction contracts are signed.
Right.
So we didn't give it as seed money. We didn't give it at the beginning. We didn't give it to
Wasn't
get the
design
project
money.
started. It wasn't design money. It had to be fully designed. It had to have gone to the voters. The voters had to agree,
Positive debt exclusion.
because there were going to be debt exclusions for these projects. And eventually, so what I look at that for is, on occasion we would get a PTA who would come to us requesting something. And because we learned the hard way, what we learned is you needed to make sure that what they were asking for money for was actually going to be accepted
By the school or the
by
school
the
community.
school or whoever it
Okay,
was
or
that
the
was
program.
asking for the money. Yes.
Sure.
So this was much the same. You didn't want to be giving $3 million is a lot of money, and then find the debt exclusion failed and our money was gone.
Right.
And we didn't have it to give it to something else. So that made everybody, I think, a little nervous, but we kept trying to explain that we were 4 people. They knew every single one of us. We were not going to go back on our word. The money was there.
Yes.
It was just a matter of being sure the project was there.
Well, and look at the rink as a great example. The first debt exclusion failed.
Right.
And so after the whole project was revised and came back again, then successful debt exclusion, and we could move forward and sign all our appropriate contracts for you.
And your people did come before us again to let us know what was changed.
Yes.
Because
yes.
it could have been something significant.
Yes.
And, we could have said, no, that isn't
we
the
don't want
project
that
we bought
anymore.
into. But
Exactly.
it wasn't. So,
Good point.
yes. So we're kind of very protective of how we use our money.
Okay.
And so the contracts are signed, the steel is going up,
Yes.
the projects are being built, and the checks have been received by the town.
All right.
I do want to add one thing.
Absolutely.
That I can boast for Pat.
Okay.
Because she won't. These are, I believe, among the largest donations, private donations given to the town.
Yes.
And
in
they
my
are
memory,
certainly, yeah, and they are certainly the largest donations that the foundation will give.
Yes.
And this is a moment in time that we want to sort of step back and celebrate and really recognize, that we will be remembered
This is a big
for these
deal.
2 donations.
Yes. And so it was great that you were at the select board and you had that opportunity. And I think then to do your proclamation with all of town meeting and all of the attendant media coverage, I think that's awesome. That's perfect.
Yeah, we're grateful to the select board.
Yes. When you give donations large and small, Do they, I mean, the 2 million and the 1 million, that's going to go to fund a lot of things in those two structures. But when you get to some smaller donations, let's backtrack to some of the smaller things, and I'll start with my own project, the Belmont Police Station. We, as you recall, were doing this under the cap. We were doing this DPW and police station project without a debt exclusion. So we were scrounging for every penny that we could get from every imaginable source. And we did approach the foundation, and I was the person filling out all the forms for you. But I recall that you had to specify, what are you going to use this for? And it has to be something that's going to last as long as that building. And in the moment, I remember going back and forth with the building committee, what's it going to be? What are we going to tell them? How much are we going to ask for? And we did land on lockers, which is not particularly sexy or exciting, but given the fact that at the police station we were building brand new locker rooms, not just for the male police officers, but for the females who had never had locker room space, having some really good locker rooms, and they had to be kind of certain specifications because they had to be able to lock given the gear and stuff that they were putting in them. So we landed on lockers, and without that donation, we never would have been able to purchase those. We just wouldn't. It was $100,000. It was a big chunk of what we were doing. So we were very grateful. But let's go back a little bit. People will remember the Underwood Pool. Speak about that, because that was such a spontaneous project that wasn't just the bank, it was the whole community.
So I'm going to let Ellen speak to it, because she actually was on the pool building committee, and she was the person who came to us initially for the money. However, it is the project that I think all four of us are the happiest about and the proudest of, because I feel we made it happen. You know? And
yes,
if
and
you
quickly.
would like to
They saved the
explain.
day.
Yes.
I was not yet part of the foundation. I was on the pool building committee, and I helped lead the fundraising. To be brief, we had a debt exclusion. We had our funding lined up. The bids came back too high. So we needed to raise $388,000 in about 4 weeks in order to accept the bid and go forward with the project.
Yeah, you had 30 days that bid was
Right.
good. After that, it expires,
Yes.
and it's only going to go up.
And you have to rebid.
Yes.
And this is the law.
Big legal process.
And things
yes.
become more expensive and all of that. So it was very scary, and we didn't know what we were going to do. And we realized that we should probably put together a fundraising campaign and see what we can do. And so I had done some stuff with the bank before. So I called Bob Mahoney, who was president of the bank.
I have to hasten to add, absolutely no relationship
No,
to me.
no. But
And she is saying bank as bank.
oh yes, I called
that
the
time.
bank.
Yes.
It wasn't us she came to initially. It was
But they sent me there. But
Right.
yeah, no, I called Bob, and I said, here we are. We need to raise $388,000 in 3.5 weeks, and can you help us? So I gave him a little bit more background. He went away. He said, we'll get back to you. I think they called me back the next day
Wow.
and said, we are going to give you $200,000, so half of it, as a matching grant.
Perfect.
And we want you to go out and fundraise for the rest of it, and the money that we're giving you can inspire people to give. And they took a situation that was extremely sad and frustrating and scary and all of this, and they turned it into a huge success. It really did light a fire into people, and I've never seen anything like it. People just were contacting us and giving us money. I'll give you $5,000. I'll give you $10,000. And we had stuff online where people could make donations, and we got, they were just coming in. I could check it 5 times a day, and there would be more. Wow. So we raised over $400,000, and we cut it off when we knew we had enough money, and we had collected the checks.
Yes.
And so we were able to build the pool, and it is such a loved facility. You look at it in the summertime, it's swarming with kids
right.
Yeah.
and
Yes,
adults.
yes.
And it never would have happened if it weren't for the foundation.
Right. Well, and I love the idea of the matching grants. And even without the matching grants, I think that on a number of these projects, just the fact that the foundation donated did inspire other people to donate as well. Because we had to collect a lot of donations for the police station to finish the kitchen, to do a bunch of other stuff that we wanted to do, and we just couldn't make it happen. But we could always say, oh, but look, the foundation has already stepped up. What can you do for us? And I think that helped.
It also challenged other banks and businesses in
Yes,
Belmont
yes.
to give to some of these things. You
Yes,
know,
good point.
when we were right
Good point.
there offering
Yes.
the money.
And I think when the Underwood Pool happened, it was one of the largest fundraising and most public fundraising efforts that I've seen. There were a few others already, but I think it helped lay the foundation for a culture of giving, which I think has benefited so many other projects along the way.
I think you're right. Talk a little bit about one that maybe not as familiar to a lot of people, but I think for many was equally important, and that's the Belmont Veterans Memorial. As we know, that's at Clay Pit Pond. That was a significant first cleanup and renovation of a corner of the Clay Pit grounds there that was just trashy. That was just horrible, and turned into something very beautiful, but also a lasting memorial. Who'd like to address that?
Well,
I was on the memorial committee. You decided to give the money, so.
But it was not a question. I mean, when they came, we were like, yes, we would like to give the money. We need a little more information. You know,
Right.
we got more information, and that was a large grant.
Yes.
That was a very large
That
one
was,
for
I've
us.
got it here. Where are we? That was
100,000, I think.
100,000.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
It was one of our larger ones. I mean, we did a couple at that level, and that was one of them.
Yes. I wasn't on the foundation staff at that point,
Okay.
but I was working with the Veterans Memorial Committee, and I was helping with fundraising. And we put this one together. We did a lot of fundraising in the community. The thing about the Veterans Memorial Committee that I loved so much is it was a group mostly of veterans who, God, it was a passion of it was a project of passion.
It really was.
And it was so important to them,
Yes.
and the people that they touched and who contributed, but also who were just involved. It was meaningful, and so many of the projects I've been involved with had to do with children,
Yes.
and schools and pools and stuff like that. It was heartwarming to be part of that project, and this was a very large grant as part of the budget, and it made a difference. It helped make it happen.
Right, right. And in my mind, there's sort of two components. There are I'll call them monuments. There are the permanent structures
Right.
there with the list of names of people from Belmont who were lost in these various wars. There is a lovely structure acknowledging the Medal of Honor that Robert Stretch Foley was awarded in Vietnam. A lot of connections there for my family. So that's very meaningful. But then there's also the brick sort of apron that surrounds the flagpole where people could buy a brick and they could memorialize their loved one. And when you walk around and you see all the names and all the people, it's just so neat. It's almost like a piece of Belmont history right there. All of these people who've lived here and how they've served and where
served.
they served.
Yes, no, you're absolutely
Really,
right.
and I hope that someone at some point took a lot of pictures of all those bricks so that you have that information forever, because so many of them include dates in
Right,
addition to the
right.
names and the service.
It's
Right.
the first time we had a memorial that recognized all of the different wars. There, was one for this war and one for that war, and there was one inside the library that you couldn't access if the library was closed.
Right.
And this really brought it all together. It created a space where you could sit and reflect. It's beautiful space.
It really is. It's very lovely, and it overlooks the pond, and at the holiday time, it's all decorated with lights. It really is very nice. All right, some less dramatic, and many of them connected to schools. So I'm looking at the list here. Playgrounds, Butler Joyce Park, Pequawset Town Field, Belmont Boosters, Farmers Market, sport program from Belmont Recreation.
The farmers market is kind of interesting because what that actually is a program where at the end of the day, and I didn't know this, there's some food left over or some produce or whatever left over. And we made it possible for the Belmont Farmers Market to buy it and donate it
Oh, I
to
didn't know
people
that.
through the food pantry.
Oh, wonderful.
So that the merchants come to Belmont because they know they're going to go home empty.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, right.
But it has to be paid for. You know, they
need to be
they
compensated.
don't want to just pack it up and go back.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we did for
What a neat
number of
idea.
years. And
That's
it wasn't our
excellent.
idea, but it was the way it was presented to us. We were very eager to do it. I mean, one year we did eggs. I'm not exactly sure what we did with eggs, but there was an egg vendor, and there was a lot
of
eggs.
eggs, oh dear.
And we did eggs. So we've been doing that all along, and then we stepped it up during COVID and did even more. But that was much broader
Yes.
than the youth-oriented ones. Yes.
All right, what about the youth-oriented ones, tongue twister? Because that is it's not a tangible item. You know, I mean, support of the playgrounds certainly is, but
Yeah.
sport program and some of these other things, it's more an activity.
We really tried hard to make it be much more concrete. So if it was
Okay.
sport, it might be the equipment that
Okay, good.
these students were using.
Okay.
It didn't pay salaries or things like that.
Good.
That was at least the goal.
All right.
There's the Belmont Teachers Award.
Oh,
there was
all
an
right, talk
award for
about
Belmont
that,
teachers
'cause you
that-
might see that in the
That's a big
newspaper
one.
and wonder how that came about.
So, well, that was the Foundation for Belmont Education actually was doing something through however they do it. And they asked us if we would fund it.
Okay.
And so they chose a teacher in each school to be honored every year.
Okay.
And they make a huge deal of it. It's a lot of fun. The superintendent comes, the principal comes. They go into a classroom and surprise the teacher and announce this. And then there's a gigantic ceremony. And so we funded that. And then about 5 years ago, we asked if we could add one, naming it for Warren Farrell.
Oh, sweet.
Who has been very involved in the schools, on the school committee, doing all kinds of things for kids and youth for all of his years in Belmont. And so they allowed that. So the seventh one is the Warren Farrell Outstanding
nice,
Teacher
very
Award.
nice.
And so that's a good one, you know, and that's a little less tangible. That is an outright money
Right.
award to a
Yes.
teacher. Yes.
But that's a nice recognition and nice to name it for Warren Farrell.
And then
That's
there's one
very
for Warren,
sweet.
and the other 6 are as they've always been.
7 now that we have another school.
I guess there will be
Yeah.
another one this year. I mean,
Yes.
And was there last year?
I think so.
Was there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And last, some nonprofits. Powers Music School, Habitat.
Habitat was very interesting. We actually provided the charging stations for electric cars.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if they were the first charging stations in Belmont, but they were a number of years ago. And I think we
good to
did
know.
3. And we did the pen for goats.
Okay.
And one more. We did the Welcome Center.
And we did the Welcome
nice.
Center. Yes. So again, it was tangible.
That's
It
very
wasn't
tangible,
Habitat.
sure.
Powers Music School was programs that they held at the library for youth, usually. And so we funded the cost of those. So it wasn't directly, it was to Powers Music School, but it was
But it
for
was
this
specific
this
programs.
specific purpose, which we did for a lot of things. We did fund some author series.
Okay.
We did fund some other speaking ones. I know that and we funded a lot of like financial seminars and things like that for both students and for young adults looking
Sure.
to change jobs or do whatever. We did all of those kinds of things also.
Well, ladies, this has been fascinating. Thank you for all of this information. I hope our viewers now have a much better understanding of the Belmont Savings Bank Foundation and the many things that happen in town because of that foundation. Very, very, very good work. Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
Anne
you.
Marie Mahoney. This has been Belmont Journal. See you next time.